So picture this space as unfiltered reality, raw awareness, mind at large, being, ultimate truth, etc. It's a boundless, undifferentiated field. It only becomes separated into parts when boundaries or concepts are introduced. Note there that I'm equating boundaries and concepts. Boundaries, concepts, separation, distinction, duality, all words for the same thing. So this then is an epistemic boundary. It represents the scope of what a given individual can know or experience. It frames all perception and thought within its limits. Let's say it's your epistemic boundary. It's your mind. Everything you know, perceive, and think about occurs within this boundary. This boundary is effectively a conceptual container. What exists within is conceptual space. Inside this conceptual space, we form models of our environment, of things other than us. So, a tree, for example. We also form models of ourselves. Generally, we form a model of a person with a body. Look at that dapper fellow. Or we may form a model of ourselves with a kind of a spirit or a homunculus inside of a body. The key point, though, is that all of this occurs within the epistemic boundary. Don't think of the circle as your body and your environment as external to the circle. That's not it. Everything inside the circle is what you conventionally take to be yourself, that being your body and thoughts, but also everything that is perceived or is ever available to be perceived by you. This conceptual space is the realm where language, identity, and meaning operate, giving structure to experience. It is the space of form. Inside this conceptual space, we create more boundaries distinguishing between objects, not just objects in the conventional physical sense, but objects of mind too. Your idea of a happy day is an object. The sound of my voice right now is an object. Even things like space and time are objects. Physical laws are objects. You'll find that when you look into your awareness, there is actually no dimension, no past or future either, just here and now. A thought isn't over there, it's right here. In this conceptual space, we create models of models, reinforcing the perception of separation and making it more challenging to recognize the ultimate truth that exists without boundary. Hell, we might even make a model just like this one and replace our sense of self with that model, recognizing that what we actually are is the limit of our conception. But this too is just a model inside the epistemic boundary. One cannot utilize concepts to escape concepts. But by conducting self-inquiry, which is specifically not a mode of conceptual construction, we can release our attachments to the models we've made for ourselves. More specifically, self-inquiry might, for example, involve asking the question, what am I? But this question is not posed as a request to yourself for further analysis. Rather, it serves as an opportunity to let go of each conceptual answer as it arises, to feel for the sense of self if it arises, and to recognize that sense for what it is, just another component of conceptual space, just another thought. Self-inquiry then enables us to move beyond the structured, goal-oriented realm of conventional truth and opens us to the unfiltered experience of ultimate truth, which is recognized only beyond thought, beyond all mental constructs. It's a direct, immediate awareness that doesn't rely on any concept or model. What non-dual realization is then, what the recognition of ultimate truth is then, at least for a brief moment, dropping all of these concepts and recognizing the formless substrate or backdrop behind all thought, that substrate being awareness itself. Of course, I use the words substrate and backdrop, but these are necessarily just components of a conceptual model because they exist in conceptual space, within your epistemic boundary right now, as you're hearing them. So don't take those words too literally. Remember, concepts and boundaries are equivalent. So dropping all concepts includes dropping the epistemic boundary itself. But while this boundary is unrecognizable in a non-dual state, it still frames all perceptions and thoughts within its limits. That's because the nature of conceptual thought is division. So naturally, by its very nature, it must be finitely bound in order to function. The fact that the boundary dissolves during non-dual awareness is not some magic trick that suddenly enables you to know things beyond the limit of knowing, because everything beyond the boundary is not in conceptual space. There is nothing to know out here. Nothing can be thought of, nothing that can be thought of in terms of division. The only thing to know, which is not a thing, is knowing itself, awareness itself, which you know directly prior to concepts. This direct recognition leads to a permanent shift or reorientation that occurs in conceptual space, which, prior to the recognition, centered on a model of the self. After recognition, experience is oriented to the true self without form, to which no harm can come and to which no suffering can occur. Again, by its very finite nature, conceptual space is itself conceptual. It is actively constructed by the mind, which is why it, too, can be dropped as a concept. Just hearing me talk about it in this model, though, won't give it to you, as I'm only giving you more concepts. The recognition must be directly witnessed. One might ask then, why the hell are you making a model right now if the model can only reference conceptual space? That would be a fair question. I would say the point of the model isn't to model ultimate truth, which is impossible, because the formless can't be captured in a form. The point of the model is just to try to get across the limits of thought, which can only reference other thoughts, and perhaps to point to the value of self-inquiry. I hope that was somewhat sensical.